حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم يا ربي بالمصطفى بلغ مقاصدنا يا رب فبلغ مقاصدنا يا ربي بالمصطفى بلغ مقاصدنا واغفر لنا ما مضى يا واسع الكرم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم من تذكر جيران بذي سلامي. It's the first stanza from Qasida Burda. So it's the pehla sher Qasida Burda I'm reading. He said, من تذكر جيران بذي سلامي مزجت دمعا جرى من مقلة بدمي مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم. अब मैं call on the stage my elder brother, मेरे brother अकबर जो हमारे इस मस्जिद के फर्स्ट क्लास के भी उस्ताद हैं, हाफिज मोहम्मद ज़ुबैर कादरी साहब, इनसे मैं मुल्तमिस हूँ कि सरकार की बारगाह में हदीयनात पेश फरमाए. नारे तकबीर, जोर से नारे तकबीर, नारे रिसालत या रसूल अल्लाह.
फ़लस्तीन के हवाले से एक कलाम है, उसी पे एक दो शेर पढ़ता हूँ. बड़ी तवज्जो के साथ ये कलाम सुनने वाला है. कौम मुस्लिम बढ़ रही है, जागो मुस्लिम हाकिमों, इज्जत उनकी लुट गई है, जागो मुस्लिम हाकिमों. जल रहा है ये गज़ा देखो, जल रहा है ये फ़लस्तीन, जल रहा है ये गज़ा देखो, जल रहा है फ़लस्तीन. आग हर जहाँ पे लगी है, जागो मुस्लिम हाकिमों. दुआ करें अल्लाह ताला हमें सानिए फ़रोग़ आदम अता फरमाए. पूरी दुनिया से दुआएं हो रही हैं, अल्लाह ताला कोई ऐसा मर्द कलंदर अता फरमाए कि हमारे हालात बेहतर हो गए. ये यकीनन इसी वजह से है कि हर उल्टा काम हम करते हैं, हर क्या कहते हैं हेरा फेरी हम करते हैं, लेकिन लो भी अल्लाह ताला से लगी है कि अल्लाह ताला ने ही हालात बेहतर करने हैं. लेकिन हमें भी चाहिए कि अपने आप को देखें, अपने आप को सीधा करें. तो ये शेर इसीलिए लिखा गया है कि इंतज़ारे सानिए फारूक के आज़म में फिरा, इंतज़ारे सानिए अक़सा खड़ी है, जागो मुस्लिम हाकिमों। अहले कश्मीर और फ़लस्तीन पर बपा है कि हश्र सख्त आफत की घड़ी है, जागो मुस्लिम हाकिमों। लुट रही है कौम मुस्लिम और तुम खामोश हो। किस कदर ये बेबसी है, जागो मुस्लिम हाकिमों। अल्लाहु अकबर। कौम मुस्लिम मर रही है और तुमको एक बस फिक्र कुर्सी की पड़ी है, जागो मुस्लिम हाकिमों। हर एक को अपनी अपनी कुर्सी की पड़ी हुई है, तो जड़ी भी जो है ना अपना लीडर उसको अपनी अपनी कुर्सी की पड़ी हुई है। किसी को कोई फिक्र ही नहीं है कि फ़लस्तीन में क्या हो रहा है, कश्मीर में क्या हो रहा है, वो बर्मा में क्या हो रहा है, अफगानिस्तान में क्या हो रहा है, इंडिया के मुसलमानों पर क्या हो रहा है। तो इसी को लिखा है कि फिक्र कुर्सी की पड़ी है, जागो मुस्लिम हाकिमों। आ उठे फिर कोई उम्मत में मूसा बिन नज़ीर, कल आमीन। आ उठे फिर कोई उम्मत में मूसा बिन नज़ीर, बेकरारी बढ़ गई है, जागो मुस्लिम हाकिमों। आखिरी शेर कह रहा तुमसे तैयब कौम की फरियाद को, अर्ज मेरी बस यही है कि जागो मुस्लिम हाकिमों। इंतजार साने फारूक आज़म में फिरार, मस्जिद अक़सा खड़ी है, जागो मुस्लिम हाकिमों।
I was reading a poem by my father in regards to Masjid Al-Aqsa, and the word that he was using, that Jago Hakimo, Muslim Hakimo, that all our Muslim leaders wake up. And it is a harsh reality that our Muslim leaders, they'll call for a ceasefire, they'll condemn Israel, but they will never say that we will break ties with Israel. They will never say that. Why? Because they have their worldly needs with them. Because Israel provides weaponry and armor to majority of the world. And now, because they provide weaponry, they depend on Israel, now they can't break ties with them. This is the issue that we have in the Muslim world. This is just one of them. There's many thousands of issues that we have in the Muslim world. Khair, I'm just going to do a disclaimer before I pass on the mic to Imam Sahib. So, in regards to Masjid Al-Aqsa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions Masjid Al-Aqsa in the Quran. The ayat that I read in the khutbah, Allah says, Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi laylan min al-masjid al-haram ila al-masjid al-aqsa. That that pure is He who made His servant travel from Masjid al-Haram to Masjid al-Aqsa. And this is the only masjid mentioned in the Quran after Masjid al-Haram by name. It is the only masjid in the Quran. This is why it is so important. Now, in order for us to see success today, if you want to see success, अगर हम कामयाबी चाहते हैं, where is success? And success lies in following the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Quran says, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. That indeed in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is uswa hasana, the best of examples. And why is it the best of examples? He answered in the next following word, لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُ اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرِ. That for the one who hopes in Allah on the last day. So if you want success, we have to follow the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is the only way. The problem is we moved away from the sunnah, then that was the day of our decline. The day we come back to the sunnah, that is the day when we will be successful. Then, why is Masjid Al-Aqsa so important? Remember, Isa alayhi salam, when he comes, he will inshallah conquer the world. Inshallah. And when he does that, the capital of the Muslim world will be Jerusalem, Masjid Al-Aqsa. So, in regards to that, I've got 11 reasons. I'm just going to go through them one by one quickly. Masjid Al-Aqsa is important because it is the first Qibla of Islam. This is the first reason why Masjid Al-Aqsa is so important. Second reason, it is the place where the Prophet ﷺ went to the heavens. It is that place. Then, third reason, it is the place where where a masjid was built. Masjid Al-Aqsa was built. And over here there's a hadith from Bukhari Sharif. The Prophet ﷺ, he was asked, Ya Rasulullah, which was the first masjid built? He ﷺ said Masjid Haram. Then he ﷺ was asked, Ya Rasulullah, which was the second masjid built? And he ﷺ said Masjid Al-Aqsa. Then he ﷺ, he answered, the time difference between Masjid Haram and Masjid Al-Aqsa is 40 years. 40 years. This is in Bukhari Sharif, this hadith. So this is why it is so important. Then fourth reason why Masjid Al-Aqsa is so important is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put barakah around this masjid. Quran says, Barakna hawlahu, that we put barakah around this area, meaning the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam, they are buried in this area. And then the Sahaba Kiram, they are also buried in this area. So this is another aqidah over here, that those people that say that going to mazar is shirk, going to mazar is bid'ah, it is this, it is that. The answer is in the Quran, that you go to the graves of the Anbiya, you are actually attaining barakah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the Quran is saying, Barakna hawlahu, कि हमने इसकी इर्द-गिर्द बरकत रखी. This is aqidah we're learning from Masjid Al-Aqsa. Then, another reason why Masjid Al-Aqsa is so important is because there were many miracles that were shown over here by the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam. They showed their miracles. For example, Isa alayhi salam, his miracles were seen in this place. Then, another one. Masjid Al-Aqsa is mentioned in the Quran indirectly and directly 70 times. 70 times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Masjid Al-Aqsa. Then this is a place where the angels descend. The angels descend upon this area. This is why Masjid Al-Aqsa is so important. Then another one, number 10. that Masjid Al-Aqsa is important because this is the only place and the very place where all of the Anbiya were present at one time in one Jama'ah. There's no other place on the earth where the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam were together in one place. But Masjid Al-Aqsa is that place. कि सारे अंबिया एक ही साफ में खड़े हो गए, सारे अंबिया कट्ठों ने खड़े हो के जमात और सबसे आगे मेरे महबूब सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the imam of all of the anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam. This is why Masjid Al-Aqsa is so important. There are many reasons. My dua, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala free Palestine so that we can see Masjid Al-Aqsa free as well. And the oppression upon the Muslims in Gaza, inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un, and then the news from yesterday that America vetoed the vote for a ceasefire. This is shocking. If you look at the history in the UN, for the past 40 years, America has vetoed for a ceasefire. For the past 40 years, this is what they will keep doing because they don't want a ceasefire. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give Palestine freedom. And the only way that Palestine will be free is by jihad. I'm being very clear. That's the only way that we as a ummah become one nation and then we fight for Islam. That is how Palestine will be free. If we leave it to our Muslim leaders to go and talk and do a table talking that we can free Palestine, it's not going to happen. Because we've seen it for the past 100 years. 100 years is enough of experience to understand what's going on. Allah Ta'ala hame samne ki tawfiq nasib farmaye. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept what I have said. I pass on the mic to our esteemed guest Imam Adil, whom a person I look up to, a person who I make dua for as well. He is one of a kind, he's a flower in the flowers of Ahl Sunnah wa Jama'ah. Allah Ta'ala preserve him. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raise his ranks and we're able to learn from him. Ameen. उनके आने से पहले नारा हो जाए, नारे तकबीर, नारे रिसालत, नारे तहकीक.
Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahu Rabbu Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallama. Nahnu ibadu Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallama. उस घड़ी का गदा हूँ मैं जिसमें मांगते ताजदार फिरते हैं, जो तेरे दर से यार फिरते हैं, दर बदर यूं ख्वार फिरते हैं, और उन्हें जाना उन्हें माना, ना रखा गैर से काम, लिल्लाहिल हम्द में दुनिया से मुसलमान गया. Honorable and respectable Imam al-Khatib of Masjid Hadha, Muhtaramul Maqam Izzat Ma'ab, Hazrat Allama Hafiz Umar Tayyib Sahib, Maddazillahul Ali, honorable and respectable elders, brothers in Islam, lovable youngsters. To each and every one of you, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am grateful to the aforementioned Imam and Khatib of Masjid Hadha and the Intizamiya of this Masjid, bil khusus Muhtaram Haji Sahib who was sat at the back. Haji Subhanallah, Haji Ghulam Rasul Sahib, for once again inviting me to Masjid Quba here in Stockport. My first Hazri in 4 years and 3 months. Not that I'm counting. But nevertheless, I was here for the graduation ceremony back end of last year, Ghaliban. And it's an absolute honor and privilege to be here with you. this evening as well. Time is of the essence and I have quite a lot to get through. 25 slides in total. While this PowerPoint presentation that we put together just over 2 months ago, as soon as the recent atrocities started on the 7th of October, which has led to over 20,000 Muslim brothers and sisters, elders and youngsters innocently losing their lives in Gaza. Over 70% of them, as you know, are women and children. Over 1.5 million Muslims have been displaced from their homes, homes that have been damaged or destroyed. And yesterday, one of the oldest masjids in Gaza was bombed and destroyed. A lot of these things you'll be aware of. So it's absolutely crucial and of the utmost importance and significance that come as come, we as Muslims living in the West are aware of our history. Bil khusus here, the history of the Muslims in Palestine. And that's exactly what we've named this PowerPoint presentation. So if you can't see the screen, I will suggest that you come into the middle. Some of you are closer to Bradford than you are to Stockport. करीब करीब आ जाओ. वैसे थोड़ी जिस तरीके से ठंडक है. Heating, I think, will take a bit of time to warm up. Or Hazrat was talking about disclaimer earlier on. I will give you a disclaimer as well. That I am responsible for everything that I say in the next hour or so. And I apologize for my voice being slightly croaky and maybe I'm not coming across in a very pleasing way to your ears. As I was telling Haji Ghulam Rasul Sahab, Alhamdulillah, we came back from Al-Madinatul Munawwara on Thursday. After having the sa'adat of performing the Umrah and making Hazri in Makkatul Mukarramah and presenting ourselves in the Bargah of Rasul Akram Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in the presence of Rajpa Nabi Karim Rasul. So, वो कहने jet lag. वो jet lag का सिलसिला जारी है. Like, there's no rest for the blessed. We have continued where we left off before we went to Umrah. So inshallah Azza wa Jal, I'm hoping that this will be an informative discussion for you, something different. Like I'm alluding to, is visual. So a very brief history of how the Muslims conquered the Baytul Maqdis and how it was taken from Muslim hands and what we can do today. Some of the points that I wanted to highlight have already been mentioned, so it makes my job slightly easy. But nevertheless, we start the discussion here by talking upon Jerusalem, Al-Quds Sharif. It is one of the oldest cities in the world and is considered holy by all of the Abrahamic faiths. Islam, Christianity and Judaism. All three Abrahamic faiths have vested interest in Jerusalem. As it's not just Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, Al-Batta, it's not just Jerusalem. But here, in light of this verse, Allama Qurtubi Rahmatullahi Ta'ala alayhi, in the tafsir Al-Jami'u li Ahkam Al-Quran, there is a barakna hawlahu li nuriyahu min ayatina, that Allah Almighty has blessed the surroundings of Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. This is from Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa all the way to Khalil. Khalil something, Hebron, where we have Masjid Ibrahimi and we have the Mazarat. So not just the surrounding areas of Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, not just Jerusalem, but our ulama have said, Barakna hawlahu linuriyahu min ayatina, and this is from Al-Quds Sharif all the way to Khalil, Hebron. Subhanallah. So this particular area in regards to Jerusalem is one of the oldest cities in the world. Further to this, Al-Quds, which we often refer to as the city of Jerusalem, this means the Holy One. Holy One. Quds ka murad here, Holy One. And it is of course the location of Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, which is the third holiest place in Islam. Many of the Anbiya wal Mursaleen, and then after them the Sahaba Ikram, the noble companions of Rasul Akram sallallahu alaihi wasallam, are buried and are resting in Jerusalem. This is why this area, this city, this land is referred to as Baladul Anbiya. Baladul Anbiya. Also the Yad Rakso, Baladul Anbiya. The land of the prophets. So Ardul Anbiya. The land of and the earth that belongs to the prophets. Many of the prophets were born in Jerusalem, in Palestine. Like we've heard Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam. They were not only born in Jerusalem, not only did their mother Sayyidina Maryam salamullah alayha spend the vast majority of her life in Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa and serving Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa as one of the caretakers of this masjid and custodians of this holy place. But the city itself was the city where many of the Anbiya wal Mursaleen were born and lived and stayed and propagated the message of the uluhiyya and rububiyya of Allah Almighty Jalla wa'ala. Further to this, it is the land where the Muslims will be raised and gathered on the day of judgment. Maidan Mahshar, part of it is Jerusalem. Whether this was in terms of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam figuratively referring to Asham as Maidan Mahshar, or literally, this is something that the Sharihin of the Ahadith al-Mubarakah have discussion upon. But regardless, suffice to say, Jerusalem is a part of that land where you and me will be resurrected upon on the day of Qiyamah. That day which will be 50,000 years long. Khamsina alfa sanatin. Allah Almighty says in the Quran, Surah number 70, verse number 4, that the day of judgment will be how long? 50,000 years long. And on that day, koi rishwat nahi chalni. On that day, there will be no pillar to hide behind. There will be no room to lock ourselves in. Doodh ka doodh, pani ka pani. Today we are sat here in the United Kingdom crying about the state of the leaders of the Muslim world. In 57, 58 Muslim mamalik or Muslim leaders and hukmaran, no doubt they will also have to answer for their actions and the choices that they've made. And the silence, I've just come back from Haramain Sharifain. Koi nishani ko nahi na. एक होना ना कोई फ्लैग हो है या कोई गाल बात हो है कोई दुआ विच कुछ काखी नहीं अलबत्ता you walk through the shops in Bin Dawood rather than seeing Palestinian flags you see Christmas decorations now being sold in the shops there. Allahu Akbar. This is that country which is guilty of spending millions if not billions of riyals and dollars on entertainment and sport, and football, the Saudi Pro League and WWE stars, wrestlers coming and having wrestling matches there. Like those very same people are guilty of not even providing 1 riyal worth of a water bottle for the Palestinians. अजय उन्होंने लोग पीछे आने नहीं जो कुछ है जी सऊदी है ये अजय लोग पीछे चल दें अजीब बात है लेकिन उस दिन पर दूध का दूध पानी का पानी ऐसा तो सिर्फ आज ज़बान ही इस्तेमाल कर सकते ना आवाज़ ही उठा सकते ना बयान भी सकते ना on that day no doubt Allah Almighty will be ahkamul hakim. This land is where the Muslims will be raised and gathered on the day of resurrection. As Hazrat alluded to it, the riwayat is there now in front of you. The Prophet ﷺ himself said, Do Jahan ke Wali Rahmatan lil Alameen said, that there is not a single inch in Al-Quds, Jerusalem, where a prophet has not prayed, nor an angel. That it has been destroyed twice. Jerusalem has been destroyed twice. besieged 23 times, attacked 52 times, was being recaptured 44 times. I don't expect you to remember the numbers, but nevertheless, you should know that Jerusalem has a very long history. We should be aware of that history. Just attending protests isn't sufficient. Rather, being aware of the history of the Palestinians and being aware of the history of Palestine, this is our responsibility. Our youngsters, I see a few of the youngsters here, they are more acquainted with the history of the Romans and the Egyptians and what happened in World War I and World War II. But if you ask them about the Tariq of Islam, the history of Palestine, the history of the Muslims, पता ही कौन है, कसूर कुछ ना, हमारा अपना कसूर है ना, वालिदैन का कसूर है. But when these type of gatherings are arranged, rather than bringing our children with us, it's a Saturday afternoon going into evening, but what do? We leave our children at home. Sons are busy playing Fortnite and Grand Theft Auto, is it? And Gran Turismo, youngsters nodding his head. Tu hi bachwara majbooran, your father dragged you here. Chalo.
Allahu
Akbar yaar. Ye hamara qasur hai. We are culpable, we are responsible. So here are a few key points in relation to Jerusalem, Al-Quds. Hazrat mentioned Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, and they shared with you 10 significant points in relation to the importance of Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. Lekin, for your knowledge, and this is why we put this PowerPoint together, some people assume Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa is the Dome of the Rock Masjid. Ye gala Khalid Sahab. जिसकी कह रहे हैं कुब्बतु सखरा, क्या कह रहे हैं? कुब्बतु सखरा. लेकिन would they be right? No. They would be wrong. Others assume that Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa here, because these are the images that we see, is the Qibli Masjid, Al-Qibli Masjid, the grey dome masjid, where predominantly the men gather to offer the salah, the 5 daily prayer, the Salatul Jummah, and so on and so forth. But again, those of this assumption would be wrong. Acha, is Masjid al-Talla, we have Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, Qadim, the old Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, where the foundations were laid by the Jinnat in the Doro Zamana of Sayyiduna Sulaiman alayhi salam. Again, those of you would have seen with your own eyes. Acha, just for my knowledge, how many of you have been to Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa? 1, 2, Allahu Akbar. Hazrat, you went last year with your father, I think?
Oh, my father went.
Your father went. They left you behind, I think. They needed somebody responsible to look after everyone and everything. Only 2 people in the whole gathering. Allahu Akbar. And this is where half the problem lies as well. We'll come to that at the end, inshallah. So to remove this misconception, this is not Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, and this is not Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. Al-Batta, the entire area which has been marked here by this white line around it, this entire area and this entire complex and sanctuary, this is known as Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. This is known as Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. So these are just 2 masajid. These Masjid we have, Buraq Masjid as well. And the whole area, the whole land, this in reality is Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, the complex, the sanctuary. And this is something that we again need to educate ourselves upon. And then of course further to this, which is the first Qibla of the Muslims. We've just been, पिछले Sunday निकाला ज़ियारत वास्ते गए से मस्जिद क़िबलतैन قد نرى تقلب وجهك في السماء فلنولينك قبلة ترضاها. Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa is that way. 180 degrees from where we now face and offer our salah. The land that belonged to the Banu Salma. And Nabi Sallallahu was leading the Salatul Zuhr prayer. 2 rakats were offered in the direction of Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. Dorane Salah. Beginning of the 2nd para, Allah Almighty mentions, Ya Rasulullah, we see continuously you raising your eyes towards the heavens. قَدْ نَرَى تَقَلُّبَ وَجْهِكَ فِي السَّمَاءِ. فَلَنُوَلِّيَنَّكَ قِبْلَةً تَرْضَاهَا. So Allah Almighty gives hukam to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that Ya Rasulullah, Ya Habibullah, you change the direction of the Qibla to where you are pleased and happy. खुदा की रजा चाहते हैं दो आलम, खुदा चाहता है रजाए मुहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम। मैं थोड़ी शेर शायरी चलाना की और बुड्ढे भी खुश हो जाते ना, वो ज्यादा इंग्लिश चला तो फिर वो मॉडर्न बोलवी आए हुए जी, तो थोड़ी शेर शायरी कम चली जाना। अल्लाह गल सारी सरकार की, गल सारी ना आर दी है ना पार दी है, गल सारी
सरकार दी।
अल्लाह 16, 17 months, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the Sahaba were offering the Salah in the direction of the Masjid that we've just alluded to, Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, Doran Salah, 2 rakats offered. Which prayer was it? Zohar prayer. 2 rakats were offered in the direction of Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam changed the direction of the prayer, and 2 rakats were then offered in the direction of Makkatul Mukarramah, the Al-Ka'batul Sharifa. And that masjid today is known as Masjid Ibratayn, where this waqia happened. Further to this, as was already taken the first part of my bayan, we're reiterating this for you. It is the second masjid in the world, originally built by Adam Islam 40 years after he built the Ka'batul Sharifa. They mentioned the riwayat from Bukhari earlier on. And then of course it is the third holiest place in Islam after Al-Masjidul Haram in Makkatul Mukarramah and Al-Masjidul Nabawi Sharif in Al-Madinatul Munawwarah. और ये भी बुखारी शरीफ की रिवायत है. The Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself insisted that we as ummati should make visit to these 3 places, these 3 masajid. One salah in Al-Masjidul Haram is equal to 100,000 prayers. I'll rephrase that. One salah in the hudud of Makkatul Mukarramah, not just Al-Masjidul Haram, in the hudud of Makkatul Mukarramah is equal to 100,000 prayers. One prayer in Masjid Nabi Sharif, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Fi Masjidi, in my masjid. One prayer in Al-Masjid Nabi Sharif is equal to 50,000 prayers. अच्छा इतना क्यों बादी लोग फिर सवाल भी करने, हाँ जी इमाम साहब उम्रा करी आए तो उन्होंने पीछे नमाज पढ़ी से? मैं ऐसा नहीं पढ़ी अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह। होटल विच पढ़ी है जी, और बाकायदा बाद ही उन्होंने जो जमात हुई कि फिर ऐसा गया अपनी नमाज पढ़ी है जी, मस्जिद विच पढ़ी है, बदर शरीफ विच पढ़ी है, ओहद शरीफ विच बाकायदा गया पीछे ये वो। अच्छा बुढ़ी भी नोरा करनी सी, ओ जी इतना दूर आए हम, and I'm missing out on the vibes of reading behind the Maulvi. मैं जे बूझ ज़्यादा शौक है तो जाना पढ़ना। जे अपने हावल पर इस तरीके नाल इत्मीनान है फिर चूची थी बैठी रहो। जिन्हें कोई इल्म ही नहीं हो आजकल बहस करने दी, ओ जी तो कोई इतना पैसा लाने उठे जाए तो उन्होंने पीछे नमाज ही ना पढ़ने। मैं ऐसा नमाज पढ़ने लेकिन ऐसा नमाज अपनी खराब ना करने। उन्होंने पीछे बाजी नियत करी और अल्लाह को नहीं। Those people who consider Ma'adallah, the Prophet ﷺ to be dead, those people who today are not even speaking out in favor of the Palestinians, political gal हो जैसे sensitive लोग बैठे हुए, ओ जी हर बंदे ना अपना एक मौक़िफ़ है, दलाल की दुनिया में दलाल की रोशनी में हर बंदा अपना दावा इस तरीके से दलाल के साथ पेश कर ही सकना। लेकिन गालो इसी, then the one who reads one salah in Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that person gets the reward equal to reading 500 prayers. इतना माज़रत के साथ भी रिकॉर्डिंग भी हो रही है ना, आज ये लोग बैठे ना अपनी ड्यूटी पर माशाल्लाह मजबूत है ना, पक्के ना। माज़रत के साथ मक्का शरीफ से दौड़ने जाने, मदीना शरीफ से नसने जाने, वो भी आने जी बुलावे तो बगैर ऐसा काम भी नहीं बनना। अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह इस पर असाना ईमान और अकीदा। कौन देता है देने को मुँह चाहिए, देने वाला है सच्चा हमारा नबी, इसमें कोई शक नहीं। लेकिन जितना उठे ऐसा दौड़ने जाने तो इतने ही कोई नजर मारो ना, लेकिन नहीं हालात की नहीं अच्छे यार, उठे जाए देना कोई धमाका लगी जाए, कोई गोली मारी और जाइए। And the media has brainwashed us to such an extent now that people who go, Khalisa, have you been? Yes. Ajisa, have you been? When did you go?
I went twice. I went last year and just in summer.
That's not.
Yeah, sure.
Were there any issues?
No.
Were there any problems? Thoda jabasi tang karne at the airport.
Yeah.
How many hours did you wait?
Just 45 minutes.
45 minutes. That's absolutely nothing. That's a record time. Khalisa, when did you go?
Before COVID.
Before COVID. That's why mashallah 5 बारी गए हैं 2 बारी कोविड तो पहले बल्कि नहीं 3 बारी कोविड तो पहले 2 बारी कोविड तो बाद recently went in August as well एक बार ये सन नदीम साहब नाल भी गए सन back in October 2019 as well उठे जाए तो अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह ईमान ताज़ा होना चाहिए अकीदा पुख्ता होना why because seeing is believing I can stand here I can sit here I can deliver this lecture good 1 hour bayan Masjid Al-Aqsa ne fazail ye lekin you only appreciate this when you actually go there. This is why make niyat and intention. Make niyat and intention. That as soon as halat become better, don't delay, book your ticket to Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa straight away. Aho inshallah. Kabrai mein chehre nazar aaye ne khayal ho raha hai. Unhe jihad ka ऐलान करी हो रहा तो तू सारे हो ना हो कोई और मौलवी से फसाई और नहीं यार लेकिन कम से कम उठे जाओ तो see with your own eyes आहो इंशाअल्लाह अच्छा picking up the speed now cautious of the time क्यों 6:30 बजे खाना पेश कर सकते हैं उसके बाद ईशा भी हो सी जी we've already alluded to this verse no doubt the land of Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj so further to what we've already mentioned Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa is the land of Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj 27th of Rajab al-Murajjab 1 year before the Hijrah, Nabi Islam was taken on this miraculous journey from Al-Masjid al-Haram in Makkah al-Mukarramah to Al-Masjid al-Aqsa, the furthest masjid at that time, and then from there, where today the Dome of the Rocks masjid stands and is, Nabi Islam ascended to the heavenly world. और ये भी अकायद के चंद नुकात पेश करने हैं ये जो लफ्ज़ है ना बिअब्दिही उलमा से what that this is a clear indication that Nabi Islam made this journey not by way of a dream, not in terms of just his soul or spirit, but Nabi Islam with his jism athhar, with his actual physical body, traveled from Al-Masjid al-Haram to Al-Masjid al-Aqsa, and then from Al-Masjid al-Aqsa to Sidratul Muntaha and beyond. So ye pehla nukta hai. Dusra nukta is this, that on this night, tawajjuh se suno, on this night, the night of Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj, the crown of Khatm Nabuwat was placed firmly upon the blessed head of Rasulullah. So Al-Aqsa is not just the station of Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj, but Al-Aqsa is also the land where Aqidah Khatm Nabuwat was firmly established. Ma kana Muhammadun aba ahadin min rijalikum walakin Rasulullahi wa khataman nabiyyin wa kana Allahu bi kulli shay'in alima. Surah number 33 verse number 40. ये इस पर हमारा ईमान है ना, इस पर हमारा जीना मरना है ना. और बाबा जी रहमतुल्लाह अलैह अल्लामा खादिम Hussain Rizvi would say what, and I mentioned this on the Mokab the third Urs a couple of weeks ago, that ये जो ईमान यानी अकीदा खत्म नबूवत है ना, ये जुज़उल ईमान नहीं. So people say that this is just a part of iman. If you accept it, fine. If you don't, astaghfirullah. They say what, the whole imarat, the whole bunyad of iman is based upon Aqidah Khatm Nabuwat. And if anyone doubts Aqidah Khatm Nabuwat in the slightest, then that person is out of the folds of Bolo na yaar, out of the folds of. And this fitna, Sare-Am, fitna Qadiyan, fitna Mirzaiyat, they call themselves Ahmadis, but in reality they're not Ahmadis. We are true Ahmadis. And this is a case of identity theft. Kya hai? That they portray themselves as being Muslims without getting too jazbati here, with a very cool mind. 30 million Qadianis at this moment in time around the world. 25,000 of them here in the United Kingdom. Nabi Islam is Khatamun Nabiyyin. Or La Nabiyya Ba'dahu. There is no prophet after him. If anyone believes in any type of prophet, Juz'i Nabi, or Zimmi Nabi, or Kulli Nabi, whatever terms they may use, if anyone believes in any type of prophet after Rasul Akram Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, on this platform, here in Masjid Quba, Sare-aam and wazih taur we're making it clear that that person is out of the folds of Islam.
Bishak.
That person is out of the folds of
Islam.
And those individuals are kafir. Or somebody said to me, Imam sahab, tu sab bade jazbati ho jane aajkal. वैसे तो सर ब्लड प्रेशर ही हाई है, कोलेस्ट्रॉल ही हाई है, ये ना दूसरी कोई नार फटी जाए, मैं तो सब मेरी नारे नहीं बरबाद, डोंट वरी अबाउट माय नारा, डोंट वरी इंशाल्लाह, ये फटसी तो दीन वास्ते ही फटसी ना, तो somebody said नहीं इमाम साहब be clever, मैं how, because don't say that you're saying Qadiani are kafir, even though you're saying this, but rather say the constitution of Pakistan in 1974, through the efforts of Qaide, Millat Islamiyya, Qaide al-Sunnat, Maulana Shah Ahmad Nurani, Siddiqui Rahmatullah alayh, and Maulana Abdul Sattar Khan Niazi Rahmatullah ta'ala alayh. The constitution of Pakistan declared Qadianis as kafir. Qadianis are
Kafir.
मैं चलो शुक्र है कोई अवाम तो ही अच्छा मसला वाला भी है हाँ बस यार Nabi Islam's Aqidah Khatm Nabuwat firmly established on the night of Al-Isra wal Mi'raj. Masjid Al-Aqsa has numerous and countless fadail. We've heard some before my bayan started. You're hearing some now Dorane bayan as well. Lekin ye ek samjho ek aham nukta aqaid ke liyaz that the maqam of Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, the place of Al-Quds Sharif, is that place, is that maqam where the crown of Khatm Nabuwat was firmly placed upon the blessed head of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah. ये आयत दूसरे सामने तर्जुमा पढ़ेगा जी, if you are able to do so. And as Hazrat mentioned, Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa referred to in over 70 places in the Quran, directly or indirectly. Or here the only masjid mentioned by name after Al-Masjid Al-Haram. Only 2 masajid are mentioned. So we should understand and know our history regarding Al-Aqsa. But if you ask our youngsters today, especially those who attend the protests, and I'm not against attending protests, I'm not against those individuals who are in Kareeb ho jao ji. Film banani hai, zahir kya hai, everyone come forward inshallah. You'll be on Kera news channel. Dunya news kya cha rahe ho? Mashhoor ho jaso. Sath sath durood sharif par Allahumma salli ala sayyidina wa nabiyyina wa shafiina wa maulana Muhammad sallallahu. वो वैसे हीटर चलने रहे. वैसे थोड़ी गर्मी होएगी है. So I hope everyone is wearing the heater and deodorant. वरना काम खराब ही होती है. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina wa nabiyyina wa shafiina wa maulana. So far so good? Yes? End पर भी इम्तिहान भी लेना है. अच्छा. Now going more into the historical aspects after Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam Zahri Parda from this dunya. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam left this dunya in the 11th year after Hijrah. In which year? 11th. Achha, we don't say he died. We don't say that he passed away. The English language doesn't do justice. We say out of respect, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did Zahri Parda from this dunya. In English, he was physically veiled from this dunya. Why? Because our iman and aqidah Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah is that Anbiya wal Mursaleen bil khusus, Imam al Anbiya wal Mursaleen huzur jane jana, they are alive in their blessed graves. Tu zinda hai wallah. मज़ाहिर है कल्ला ही लग गया तू जिंदा है बंदा मेरे चश्मे आलम से छुप जाने वाले. अच्छा जी आहो जी ये तो शेर है ना, आला हज़रत का शेर है. वैसे तो से शेर चलाने हो सुनिए ना और क्या काम है. एक तरफ तो सब बाशी ना तो पढ़ने हो, दूसरी तरफ तो सिर्फ लंगर ही खाने हो. मैं ऐसा नहीं, हमारे पास दलाइल भी है. अच्छा जी इमाम साहब दलील पेश करो. योर क्लेम दावा है ना. Da'wah is what? Anbiya wal Mursaleen are alive in their grave. Every da'wah needs a dalil. ये तो कायदा है रशीदिया में. ad-da'wah bila dalilin ghayru masmu'in. That a claim without any proof or evidence ghayru masmu'in is not listened to. अच्छा काफी दलाइल पेश कर सकते हैं, लेकिन linking it to the discussion that we're having. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam traveled from Al-Masjid Al-Haram to Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa on the Buraq, and he passed by the grave of Sayyiduna Musa alayhi salam. ये सही मुस्लिम शरीफ में है. नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम passed by the grave of Sayyiduna wa huwa qa'imun yusalli fi qabrihi, and Musa alayhi salam was standing in his grave, and not only was he standing but he was praying in his grave as well. Ulama Ikram used this narration to do istidlal upon this fact that no doubt the Anbiya wal Mursaleen are alive in their blessed graves. They are
Alive.
alive in their blessed graves. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did Zahri Parda from this dunya in the 11th year after Hijrah. Then came the Dore Khilafat of Afdalul Bashar Ba'd al-Anbiya bit Tahqiq. Yare Ghar, Yare Mazar, Sayyiduna, wa Maulana, wa Khairuna, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu. Gali Gali, Nagar Nagar.
Abu Bakr.
ले लो मेरे यार. गली गली नगर नगर अबू बकर गली गली नगर नगर अबू बकर खलीफा अव्वल बिला फसल का मुराद here that he was the chosen appointed khalifa of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam without any interruption bila fasal. There was nobody before him. And again we can sit here all night talking about this. Jamadul Akhir is coming, the month of Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, और ये भी यानी अकायद के साथ यानी नुकात पेश करने साथ साथ अकीदा भी पुख्ता हो जाए. Our अकीदा is अकीदा अहले सुन्नत वल जमात as well. That Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, his khilafat is ijma'i. Him being afdal is also ijma'i. And him being afdal is qat'i. And him being khalifatul rasul is also qat'i as well. These are technical terms. Without going into too much. Like some people will do khiyanat upon this aqidah today. Some will say, no, ye yani qat'i aqidah nahi, ye zanni aqidah hai. In English, qat'i means definitive. Zanni means non-definitive. Qat'i is established upon verses of the Quran or hadith mutawatira, simple basic level. Zanni aqidah is that which is established upon khabrul ahad or khabrul wahid. Bara zameen asman da fark hai yaar. जिन्हें कहने ना राफसी लोग, those individuals who have now creeped into our jamaat and who are polluting our stages. 4 साल बाद मेरी हाजिरी हुई है, इन्होंने 4 साल और भी वेट करने पे. आजकल ये भी खतरा होना ना, मेरे को रहन भी नहीं होना.
इंशाल्लाह नहीं.
कोई मसला नहीं यार, 4 साल का मैंने 8 साल बाद बनाओ. लेकिन अब इस मिंबर का तकाजा और इस स्टेज का हक भी पूरा बंदा करा ना. आलिम no doubt is from amongst the yani warathul anbiya. ये क्या मतलब यार, you given the minbar, you given the stage and रात पार मारो यार. नहीं. If you've been given this position, you should do justice by this position. You should fulfill this responsibility. So Afdalul Bashar Ba'd al-Anbiya, Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, this aqidah that is the most outright most superior after the messengers and the prophets, this aqidah is qat'i, definitive, and this aqidah is ijma'i. Ijma'i is something outright consensus. Some people again will do dandi marne, और नहीं ये इजमाई अकीदा नहीं, ये जमहूर का अकीदा है. ऐसा बादशाह इमाम रब्बानी आने इजमाई अकीदा है, आला हजरत आने इजमाई अकीदा है. तो तू आजकल ना पीर आई दिया जी नहीं ये जमहूर का अकीदा है जी. लोग हैं कि इस तरीके से परेशान करने, fueling a certain agenda, you got your own motives. Allah tabarak wa ta'ala protect us from such individuals. Wolves in sheep clothing. Barhal, Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq became Khalifatul Rasul. Can anyone tell me from the attendants or the attendees here, how many years did Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq rule over the Muslims? 2 years and 2 months. 2 years and
2 months.
Achha, then the leader of the Muslims, Amirul Mu'mineen, was who? Sayyidina Umar Farooq radiyallahu. Achha, how long did Sayyidina Umar rule over the Muslims? Nearly there. 1 साल काटे. 10 years. How many years? 10 साल. अच्छा ये नुक्ता मुकाने या टाइम पर क्लॉक पर भी नजर है. The third Khalifa was who? Sayyidina Uthman. अच्छा, how long did Sayyidina Uthman Ghani rule over the Muslims? Who said 12? Wow, mashallah, very good young man, excellent. 12 years. ठीक है. And then came the Dore Khilafat of Sayyidina Ali Murtaza, Mushkil Kusha, Sher Huda, Karram Allah Ta'ala Wajhul Kareem. Sayyidina Ali ruled over the Muslims for how many years? You can't tell me?
6 years.
You are saying, Imam Sahib, that's why I'm here? Just under 6 years, 5 years and a few months. And then you have the 6 months of Imam Hassan Mujtaba. Kya baat hai Raza? Us Chamanistane Karam ki Zahra hai Kali, Isme Hussain or Hassan Phool. Allahu Akbar walillahi alhamd. The 30-year period known as the period of the Khulafai Rashidin Al-Mahdiyyin. So this is early Islam. Nabi Islam left this dunya in the 11th year after Hijrah. A history lesson for you today. Then was the Dawr Khilafat of Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq, 2 years and 2 months. Dawr Khilafat of Sayyidina Umar Farooq radiyallahu ta'ala, in which we have the conquest of Jerusalem. Some of you may have heard of this. In recent weeks, those of you who are active on TikTok, is it? Or is it TokTik? Very jaldi boliye TikTok. Yeah. So in the 16th year, and in some books of history mention 17th year after Hijrah, Sayyidina Umar Farooq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu was received in Jerusalem with his army of the Sahaba. 40,000 Sahaba ikram. शायद पहले बार ही सुनने हो। कोई लोग सिर्फ कहने से नो कल ले गए नहीं 40,000 Sahaba ikram traveled from Al-Madinatul Munawwara to Al-Quds Sharif, Jerusalem. The Christian rulers of that time, they said that we will only give the keys to the city to the leader of the Muslims. If he travels from Medina to Jerusalem, we'll give him the keys to the city. Sayyidina Umar, without hesitation, began his safar from Al-Madinatul Munawwara to Jerusalem. Zahir ke liye us daur zamane mein there were no trains or planes or cars or buses. Today by plane it will take you about an hour and a half from Madinah Sharif airport to Jerusalem Al-Quds, yani Tel Aviv airport, take you about an hour and a half. Then it was horses or camels or by foot. Acha savari, Sayyidina Umar Farooqi, savari, they transport the camel, they shared with their ghulam. You heard this, right? They shared with their ghulam. Yani for part of the journey, Sayyidina Umar would sit on the camel, ghulam would hold on to the reins. Look at the equality in Islam. Look at the justice in Islam. Islam doesn't look at your social status. Islam doesn't look at the color of your skin. Islam doesn't look at any other aspect apart from what? Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. Surah Al-Hujurat mein hai na? Allah Almighty says superiority is only with those people who are the most God-fearing, the most God-conscious, equality and equilibrium in Islam. So Sayyidina Umar was sat on the camel, his ghulam was holding on to the reins. Then Sayyidina Umar would hold on to the reins, his ghulam would sit on the camel. But when they come into the vicinity of Jerusalem, Sayyidina Umar is holding on to the reins of the camel, whilst his ghulam is sat on the camel. And then they get to the east side of Jerusalem, where we today find the Jabal of Takbir, yes, where Sayyidina Umar raised the Takbir and entered into Jerusalem from that part, from that side. Acha Sayyidina Umar went and made ablution, came out and had the moccasins. Sadgi si na. Aajkal ke hukmaran ka saaf tari si na. Sayyidina Umar made wudu and they had the moccasins, leather socks on their shoulders. And Sayyidina Umar is walking towards the Christian leaders, ready to take the keys to Jerusalem. And Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, radiyallahu ta'ala, senior Sahabi who was there to welcome Sayyidina Umar Farooq and 40,000 Sahaba ikram in Jerusalem. They said what? That, oh Umar, if you go like this, then maybe they won't give you the keys. But this is not really befitting of the leader of the Muslims to walk towards the leader of the Christians with his moccasins on his shoulders. Sayyidina Umar says what? Words to the effect of that, oh Abu Ubaidah, if it was anyone else, I would have held you to account. I would have held you to account. Don't you know that we have honor and we have izzat today because of Islam? That we have honor and izzat today because of Islam? That before Islam we couldn't even line a line of camels in a straight line, and now Islam has given us so much izzat and honor that you're worried about Sayyidina Umar going and presenting himself to the leader of the Christians with his moccasins on his shoulder? Allah Akbar. Ye ajizi, ye inkasari, ye tawadu', humility, which we don't find certainly today in the hukmaran that are our leaders today. But nevertheless, Sayyidina Umar Farooq radiyallahu ta'ala, without any bloodshed, and the inhabitants of the city then were allowed to remain there under the protection of the Muslims, and their property and their places of worship were also protected by the covenant of Sayyidina Umar Farooq. This is that covenant. Of course, an image of it is still there today in Jerusalem. And Andaza 1400 saal baad. Because these people appreciate morals, ethics, and they appreciate justice and equality, and nobody was more equal and nobody was more just after the Prophet ﷺ, then the Khulafai Rashidin Al-Mahdiyyin radiyallahu ta'ala anhum. Sayyidina Umar Farooq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, when they arrived in Masjid Al-Aqsa, they found that the masjid had been turned into a rubbish dump by the Romans. तो कचरा सटने सर इस तरीके से मस्जिद ने एहतराम ही नहीं सुन करने कौन नस्वारा Christians, the Romans. So Sayyidina Umar himself, जुमले पर गौर करो, Sayyidina Umar himself started to remove the waste from the masjid with his own hands. From the masjid with his own hands. ऐसा अपनी ज़बान जारू कहने हैं ना, हाँ, began to clean the masjid with their own hands. Again, banda gawara kar sakna. This is that Umar about whom Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, if there was to be a prophet after me, it would be Umar, the son of Al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala. This is that Umar about whom Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that Allah Almighty has placed the truth on the tongue and in the heart of Umar, the son of Al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala. And this is that Umar about whom Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that the sun has not risen upon a man more greater, more better than Umar, the son of Al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala. All three narrations you'll find in Kitab al-Manaqib of Jami al-Tirmizi Sharif. And Sayyidina Umar here, cleaning the masjid. आजकल जो कोई नौजवान के साथ यंगस्टर क्या आओ जी मस्जिद में मशीन मारो, मस्जिद कोई साफ सफाई करो, नहीं यार, असले हाथ इस तरीके ना too delicate हाँ, असले बुड्ढे भी क्या है, नौजवान की बंदा क्या है, कोई बुड्ढे ने उन्हें नखरे होने ना, माज़रत के साथ कोई अरे नहीं ऐसा चरवाना, बाकी की बासा जी, कोई अरे नहीं ऐसा राजा व चौधरी, इस तरीके ना माइंडसेट में ये अल्लाह का घर है, ये किसका घर है, अल्लाह का घर है यार, हाँ, मस्जिद की आबाद करो, मस्जिद की साफ करो, मस्जिद का जारू करो यार, ये अंबिया का सुन्नत है, अंबिया की सुन्नत है ना, सूरह बकरा में है ना, इब्राहिम अलैहिस्सलाम, हम ये सहाबा की सुन्नत है, to clean the masjid, अल्लाह अकबर. And you heard that famous narration, वैसे ज़ोक और शौक के लिए सुना रहे हैं, related to the point that I'm mentioning here. आजकल ऐसे मस्जिद तो दूर होने हैं ना, नहीं मस्जिद नाल करीब हो. The masjid is the hub of the community, is the heart of the community. And everything good that happens in the community should come from the masjid. There was a black woman, Sahabiya, who used to clean Masjid Nabi Sharif. And she passed away. And it was late at night and the Sahaba didn't want to disturb the Prophet ﷺ. So quickly they offered her Salatul Janazah, did her tadfeen in Jannatul Baqi. Following day, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam noticed that the woman wasn't there. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam inquired, where's that woman? Ya Rasulullah, she passed away last night. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, why didn't you tell me? Any words to the effect of, was Hadith Sharif come of whom? They said, Ya Rasulullah, we didn't want to disturb you. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, foreign, take me to where you buried her. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam went there, did ta'ziyat there, made dua there. And then Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said to the Sahaba that this woman who was cleaning Masjid Nabi Sharif, her grave is a garden from the gardens of Jannatul Firdaus. ऐसा मामूली चीज समझे है ना, बस जी कोई सामने कचरा ही पिया उसी यानी इस तरीके पेपर पिया उसी ना, we'll walk straight past it. अल्लाह बढ़िया गल्ला भी सकनी है इस तरीके ना, लेकिन हाँ गल गेट होने रहने में तकरीबन 10-15 मिनट. Muslims then controlled and had rule of Jerusalem for 475 years. ये history है, तारीख है. Maybe you don't know this, that's why we sat here with you today. For 475 years, yani Sayyidina Umar Farooq liberated Jerusalem, conquered Al-Aqsa, in which year after Hijrah? Who's listening? Which year? 17 kariyoro, 16 kariyoro, jisna tusa khusho. From then, 475 years after that point, Jerusalem remained in the control of the Muslims. How many of you knew this? आने ना मकसद पूरा हो गया जी. आज वैसे लंगर वैसा क्या है, मैं क्यों पूछना वा नहीं, सीक्रेट में आपको पता है क्या है, और जरा चूजा जरा मटर विच पे है अरे यार. और आती असले दोस्त आए उम्र तू वापस आया ना, आज शफकत सा पिछले वाली आए से मेरे नाल 2019 की गल है, यानी इतना मेरा बयान सी बात दिया इस खाना खाने वास्ते है. यकीन करो फ्रॉम दैट डे टिल टुडे जिले ऐसा गठे होने तो जिले स्टॉकपोर्ट में नाम ले लेना, he starts crying because इमाम साहब जरा लंगर खाता सी 4 साल पहले, because I've never had लंगर like that. 59 साल उन्हें उम्र है, बाल उन्हें चिट्टे, because मैं जिंदगी उस तरीके का लंगर नहीं, मैं राती दिला है मैं कल जा रहा हूँ स्टॉकपोर्ट, because if they give that लंगर you ring me straight away. मैं फौरन आना ब्रैडफोर्ड से मैं चलो तकने हो क्या आज मेन्यू पर so this is why we're really here, not just for the langar, for the knowledge. Say Alhamdulillah. So 475 years the Muslims ruled over Jerusalem until the Muslims fell to the Christian Crusaders in 1099. Again, I don't expect you to remember all of the dates at the end. Like in come you should have this an overview and framework in your mind. In the year 492 after Hijrah, we are now in 1445 after Hijrah. Yes? So just over 1050 years ago, Jerusalem fell into the hands of the Christian Crusaders. And one of the main reasons, again, this is not propaganda or my perspective on things. Yani, I'm zimadar for every jumla, zahir kala, every mutakallim is, every speaker is. Lekin, the Fatimid dynasty were who? The Shia. They ruled over Egypt at that time. So one of the reasons why Jerusalem fell into the hands of the Christians was because of the disloyalty of the Fatimid dynasty. So if there was disloyalty then there's certainly no doubt disloyalty today as well. कोई लोग कहने नहीं ये फिरका वारियत करना और sectarian गाल करना और इस तरीके ना Muslim should be one. Of course the Muslim should be one. But we should be one upon the truth. One upon the truth, upon haqq. Anybody, you can say what you want against the Sahaba Ikram, you can say what you want against the Ahlul Bayt Yathar. But when it comes to the Palestine issues, oh we theekan, the A we theekan, the Sari theekan, it's a common goal, it's a common mas'ala. No. वही अकीदा अपनाओ जो सहाबा वाला अकीदा है तो वही अकीदा अपनाओ जो हुजूर गौस पाक का अकीदा है तो वही अकीदा अपनाओ जो सुल्तान सलाहुद्दीन अल-अय्यूबी का है. And that leads us on nicely then to the next. The Crusaders, they were brutal. They were barbaric people, beheading people on the streets of Jerusalem, whether they were young or old, healthy or sick, men or women. And the Crusaders desecrated Masjid Al-Aqsa by turning some of the parts into stables for their horses. Again, those of you, you went downstairs to the old, you would have seen, Khalid Sahib, you still remember? At the bottom of the huge pillars, original stone from the time of Sulaiman al-Islam, you will find that they've knocked into them and that's where they would tie their horses in Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. They had no courtesy for Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. This then leads us on to the time of Sultan Nuruddin Zangi Rahmatullahi. Wow. Goosebumps, yeah. Sultan Nuruddin Zangi Rahmatullahi, pious, knowledgeable and just Muslim ruler who strived to unite the various Muslim states and battle against the Crusaders. In 1168, Gregorian calendar, Nuruddin Zangi Rahmatullahi Ta'ala commissioned a special wooden mimbar, a carpenter in Baghdad. He was ordered to make this mimbar. And it was his dream that when Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa was going to be liberated and conquered, that this mimbar would be placed in that masjid. Every imam, every khatib, every sultan that was going to deliver their khutbah and their bayan, they would sit on this mimbar and would deliver their bayan. Unki khab si was their dream. Did they see their dream become a reality in their lifetime? No. They planted the seeds. Alfaz par tawajjuh karo. Maybe we might not see our efforts take fruition in our lifetime. We won't see it bear fruits in our lifetime. Maybe it'll be the case in the generation after us, that our children or their children, they will benefit from the efforts that we endure and go through today. Hamare Ustad Muhtaram, Mufassir Quran, Shari Bukhari, Hazrat Allama Muhammad Imdad Hussain Pirzada, Hafizahullah Ta'ala, Bani of Jami Al-Karam, where we studied for 5 years, Alhamdulillah. They would often mention this waqia, that there was an old man planting some seeds for a date palm tree. And a youngster walked past. And he said to the Buzurg that, Hazrat, Baba, you're planting these seeds, but you're not going to eat the dates, the fruits of this tree. Because it would take many years for that tree to grow and then for it to blossom and give fruits and so on and so forth. Jawab mein sabak hai. The Baba would say, the elder person would say to the youngster, that I'm not planting the seeds so that I eat the fruits. I'm planting the seeds so that you eat the fruits. Unfortunately, many of us are short-sighted Those who are running our masajid, aam baat ho gayi before somebody gets their jubba in a twist. The Imam Sahib is coming with his own agenda. Nahi yaar, puri mulk di gall hai. Alhamdulillah, we travel up and down the country. On the 23rd of December, we are starting our part 3 of the principles of creed. 22 towns and cities, inshallah, we'll be traveling on or visiting over the 3 months before Ramadan. So we have a fairly good idea what's going on up and down the country. Unfortunately, those who are in charge of our masajid, or samjhe bas ji aise hi or Fir'aun baithe hai na. They think that that's it, they've got the keys to the masjid. Sara rola hi kursi na, jisna Hazrat wo kalam padhne se na, aapke bade bhai, sara rola hi baqaida kursi da na. Allahu Akbar. This is why elders, don't be short-sighted. Have this vision, have this dream, and leave this legacy for your children and for your children's children as well. Say inshallah. That dream that Nuruddin Zangi had became a reality through his student Sultan Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. Nuruddin Zangi passed away in 1174, and in the year 569 after Hijrah. Just to put this into perspective, Huzur Ghaus Pak Shanshai Baghdad, Pire Pira, Mire Mira, you are Yari Shrifi hai na? The Pire Pira, Mire Mira, Mahbube Subhani, Qutbe Rabbani, Shabaz La Makani, Kindile Nurani, Al-Ghawth Al-Azam, Sheikh Sayyid Abdul Qadir, Al-Jilani, Al-Hasani Wal-Husaini. They passed away in the year 561 after Hijrah. Kitne saal pehle? 8 saal pehle. 8 saal baad Nuruddin Zangi passes away. Sultan Salahuddin al-Ayyubi ka doro zamana aa gaya ji. Aur Sultan Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, yani here 13 years after the teacher Nuruddin Zangi passes away, the battle of Hattin takes place, and Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, they liberate Jerusalem. They liberate Jerusalem. Acha, did you know that he liberated Jerusalem with an army where half of the soldiers of that army were the murids of Imam Ghazali Hujjatul Islam. Imam Ghazali Hujjatul Islam. Imam Ghazali passed away in the year 505 after Hijrah. Uwe dor hai, uwe zamana hai. Imam Ghazali apne waqt ke mujaddid. So half of the army, the Lashkar of Sultan Salahuddin al-Ayyubi that liberated Jerusalem were murids of Imam Ghazali. And the other half of his army, they were murids of Huzur Ghaus Pak Shanshai Baghdad. Go back to your own research. They gal nahi likhi tha aisa kithe jana yaar. Allah. Which tells you and me what? The Ahlul Tasawwuf, the people of spirituality, they are the people who are upon haqq. And the true Sufis are those individuals who stand on the front line and defend Deen-e-Islam. Sufis and he bas ji apne hujre baithe ji tasbih pherne ji. The bas ji dua mangi rahe tili duaएं na koi is muna par koi FIR kehne. FIR कटी और MI5 पर रिपोर्ट दी और नहीं आजकल ने सूफी ते पीर ते बाबे नहीं माजरत के साथ एक आम बात हो रही है. किसी बंदे ने खिलाफ कोई एजेंडा नहीं. वो सारे जो सहीउल अकीदा सुन्नी पीर है ना, वो हमारे सर के ताज हैं यार. लेकिन हकाइक तो सर सामने, रियलिटीज इन फ्रंट ऑफ यू. सूफी का काम ये नहीं बस तस्बीह फेरना, वज़ाइफ पढ़ना, नवाफिल पढ़ना और इस तरीके नाल दवा सिर्फ मांगना. सूफी का काम क्या है? That when Islam is going through a difficult time, that Sufi is on the front line to defend the Deen Islam. दाता साहब लिख रहे हैं अपने कश्फुल महजूब में, वो अकीदा खत्म नबूवत के बारे में थोड़ी जी गुफ्तगू पहले हुई थी ना, थोड़ी जी मजीद वजाहत करने हैं. दाता साहब राइट इन द कश्फुल महजूब. दाता साहब कौन? शहंशाह लाहौर Sayyid Ali bin Uthman al-Hujweri, Hassani Sayyid. They write in their book Kashful Mahjoob, available in English, Urdu, Farsi, Arabic as well now. They write that the greatest Sufi in the Ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is none other than Sayyiduna wa Maulana wa Khairuna Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala. Greatest Sufi in this Ummah. A few months after Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did Zahri Parda from this dunya. Stay with me. There was a false prophet by the name of Musaylama. Jhutha Nabi made a Jhutha Dawa. False prophet, he claimed that he was a prophet, Ma'adallah. He was from the lands of Najd. And he amassed a following. of 80,000 followers. 80,000 अफराद उस दौर ज़माने में ना कोई फेसबुक ना कोई सोशल आजकल रोने हैं ना तो जी फलाने इंजीनियर ने पीछे लोग पी गए जी फलाने ने प्लम्बर ने पीछे लोग पी गए जी फलाने मौलवी ने पीछे पी गए छड्डो यार हक है ना कुल जा अल हक व ज़हक़ल बातिल इन्नल बातिल काना ज़हूक़ा बस लेकिन there was a need for a response from the Sahaba. And the very first response was from Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. Sayyidina Abu Bakr says, regardless whether you fought in the battle or you didn't, the battle of Badr, whether you fought in the battle of Badr or you didn't, when it comes to the masla of Aqidah Khatm Nabuwat, each and every one of you will reach Yamama. Hafiz ibn Kathir mentioned all of this in the Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya. And who was made commander-in-chief? Sayfu bin Suyufillah. Sayyidina Khalid bin Walid radiyallahu ta'ala. Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq upon the mashwara of Sayyidina Ali Murtaza remained in Al-Madinah Munawwara. Sayyidina Ali says that Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, that if you become shaheed, then asana kya bansi. Sayyidina Ali said this. So Sayyidina Ali said that you appoint a commander-in-chief. Siddiq Akbar appointed Sayyidina Khalid bin Walid. Sahaba went there, fought in the battle of Yamama. Battle took place. You know how many Sahaba became shaheed? 1,200 Sahaba Ikram. Just to put this into perspective, from the battle of Badr to the battle of Muta, around 80 battles that took place during the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ. Every 1.5 months Sahaba were going and doing jihad. Only 250, 260 Sahaba became shaheed. Lekin in one battle, 1,200 became shaheed. Wajah kya si? Wajah was to defend Aqidah Khatm Nabuwwat. तो ये असल सूफी का किरदार है ना, the किरदार of Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, not the Sufis of today. The Aqidah Khatm Nabuwwat पर हमला हो गया फिर भी चुप, नामूस रिसालत पर डाका हो गया फिर भी चुप, copies of the Quran are being burnt in the streets of Europe फिर भी चुप. And today, खबर I put on my Instagram as well, the government of Denmark have banned the burning and the desecration of the Quran in Denmark. तो दुआ सा करने हैं. बाकी वे बकाये नॉर्वे, हॉलैंड, मैं हॉलैंड गया था ना सितंबर में. 2 weeks before I went to Holland in September, first time I went, 4 days in Amsterdam. वो एक बहुत मशहूर जर्नलिस्ट है उधर, उसका नाम और मैंने लेना क्यों रिकॉर्डिंग हो रही है जी. He goes to me, Imam Sahab, copies of the Quran were burnt in Amsterdam 2 weeks before your arrival, but not a single Maulvi has spoken out and condemned it. Yani 1 million Muslims in Holland. अरे Imam Sahab कोई बंदा बोलने वास्ते है यार ही नहीं, ना हुक्मरान, ना मौलवी, ना कोई पीर, ना कोई मुफ्ती. तो अवाम है ना. Copies of the Quran are being burnt on the streets of Europe. फिर भी चुप. Films are being made depicting the Sahaba and the Ahlul Bayt Akhar Ridwanullahi Ta'ala Alayhim Ajma'een in a disgusting and vile way. Like this film last year, Lady of Heaven. फिर भी चुप. ये बोलने ना उन्होंने गल नहीं हुई थी. अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह से सलूट करने हैं. यानी उन्होंने साहबजादे बैठे तो उन्होंने तारीफ करने नहीं. हजरत अल्लामा कारी तैयब नक्शबंदी साहब हाफिज़हुल्लाह ताला, हजरत अल्लामा हाफिज साबिर अली साबिर उस्तादुल उलमा हाफिज़हुल्लाह ताला, और भी चंद जरे उलमा हैं, यानी दलेर उलमा, brave ulama, courageous ulama. Whenever the going gets tough, these ulama are on the front line, and they will always raise their voice and raise kalimatul haq in order to defend Islam. लेकिन बाकी हमारे उलमा कोई तो बिके हुए ना, पीराने हजरात, और तो साहब we can fill in the blanks, माजरत के साथ. और किसी बंदे ने खिलाफ एजेंडा नहीं. Those पीराने हजरात who are doing good work for the deen, we salute each and every one of them. Like Amir Ahl Sunnat, Amir Ahl Sunnat, Maulana Ilyas Ata Qadri, Hafizahullah Ta'ala. Hazrat arrived in Medina Sharif the day we left Medina Sharif. हमारी बदकिस्मती. लेकिन देखो पीर देखना तो अमीर अहले सुन्नत देखो, आलिम देखना अलामा खातिम हुसैन रिजवी देखो. आज बाकी जने हैं माजरत के साथ, मैं कोई सख्त अल्फाज ना इस्तेमाल करना चाहना, लेकिन बिके नहीं यार. कोई बोलने उसका तैयार ही नहीं. कोई बस ये अपनी टोपी नहीं था, अपनी पगड़ी नहीं था, अपनी इज्जत नहीं था, अपने मदरसे नहीं पी गया. तो कहला बोल सो यार. When are you going to raise your voices? 20,000 Muslims have been butchered innocently and lost their lives in this genocide that's happening in Palestine. Kere Molvi bole yaar. A journalist बैठे ना दुनिया न्यूज़ हाँ ऐसे आने ने ना रिकॉर्डिंग अजय नहीं हुई थी इन्हें पता मौलवी है जगह हाँ इन्हें पर पूछे कितने मौलवी बोले यार अफसोस की बात है हमारा तबका है ना और ये अगेन किसी मौलवी ने खिलाफ गाल नहीं हुई थी जिन्हें बोलने ना अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह दूसरे सामने जिन्हें नहीं बोलने तो उन्होंने अपनी बदकिस्मती है लेकिन कम से कम पहचान तो रखो शुक्र है जी तुझे आगे चलो पानी कोई प्याल नहीं है मैं तो सही देखती है थैंक यू वेरी मच जी सुल्तान सलाहुद्दीन अल-अय्यूबी rahimahullah ta'ala and then when they conquered Jerusalem did you know that he didn't sleep for 2 years Sultan Salahuddin al-Ayyubi didn't sleep why because he was worried and he was preoccupied and he was concerned how he was going to liberate Al-Aqsa and at this moment in time number one priority for the ummah is Palestine number one priority for the ummah is namus risalat aur aqeedah khatm nabuwat तो मैं बयान कितने उलमा बोल रहे हैं उलमा ना किरदार है ना हुक्मरान और उलमा ना हुक्मरान बोलने वास्ते तैयार ना उलमा इसलिए ना बयान इल्ला माशाअल्लाह अगेन डिस्क्लेमर हाँ गाल मकाने जी रहने मेरे 5-10 मिनट की 20 मिनट वाई बल्ले बल्ले अच्छा बड़ी तारीख है जी after 88 years of the Christian Crusaders occupation of Jerusalem Sultan Salahuddin al-Ayyubi liberates Jerusalem and he was a compassionate honorable ruler and victor and even respected by the Christians till today Sultan Salahuddin al-Ayyubi and you go there like I said I've been 5 times alhamdulillah you go there today and you take the name of Sultan Salahuddin al-Ayyubi तो गैर मुस्लिम कम ही जाने यकीन करो कम ही जाने this is written on the grave is that the day Sultan Salahuddin al-Ayyubi left this dunya समझो पूरी उम्मत मर गई है this is written on the grave of Sayyidina Sultan Salahuddin in Damascus but the day he passed away the full ummah समझो मर गया वही है ना ये दुआ मांगे या अल्लाह give us the laika and the thani of Sultan Salahuddin al-Ayyubi okay रहा कलाम पढ़ने से पहले 2 weeks ago give us the laika and the thani of Umar Farooq radiyallahu ta'ala then came the rule of the Ottomans after the 88 years the Christians ruled over Jerusalem they didn't rule over Jerusalem ever again even till today jo zulm ho raha Gaza vich is not just against the Muslims it's also against the Christians in Gaza as well unna wasta un idea ho kya hai uski unna festival Christmas so these yani terrorists the Zionist government of Israel terrorists by definition that they put out there their terrorism isn't just against the Muslims here but against Christians in Gaza as well if I'm not mistaken before I went to Umrah they were guilty of bombing a huge church as well in Gaza so you can again begin to understand these things this is why now non-Muslims are seeing one the resilience of the Palestinians and two the perpetrators of these crimes yani the Zionist government of Israel their brutality their terrorism non-Muslims are now seeing this and they are entering into the folds of Islam पिछले हफ्ते निकाला 12 non-Muslim women in Australia accepted Islam जिन्होंने पूछा जी क्यों तुसा इस तरीके इस्लाम में दाखिल हुए हो वजह क्या they said these 2 reasons the resilience of the Palestinians and the brutality of the Zionist government of Israel Allahu Akbar and the media has the dunya has turned against them and those who have ghairat yani in terms of humanity and ghairat iman in them they have turned against the Israelis apart from these chand chele jere unhone le like you mentioned earlier yesterday's vote in United Nations one per nation every 40 years now every time there is a vote for ceasefire only the United States yani vote against they veto the vote the UK देखो कल बड़े से आने रहना है अब स्टेट की तरह वैसे वो भी इस तरीके ना वीटो ही करने they vote against अजीब बात है यार लेकिन पहचान रखो and next time these MPs Muslim and non-Muslim MPs come knocking on our doors I think the elections is around the corner again I'm not very astute when it comes to the political landscape or what's happening itna da se pata hai that conservative parties are on their knees but unfortunately the alternative isn't very good is it हाँ वो क्या नाम उसना लेबर पार्टी दा हाँ ये निबू ज़्यादा ना होना चाहिए ना कोई बादी पोस्टमार्टम होया हाँ तो सारा कुछ तो सारे सामने है ना. So next time these guys come for votes, Muslim MPs or non-Muslim MPs, don't forget what's been happening. Recent vote I think was constructed by the Labour Party, was it 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago? How many Muslim MPs abstained from voting? How many voted against having a ceasefire? Muslim MPs. Ajeeb baat hai yaar. So don't forget these things. Achha, then came the rule of the Ottomans. Aye, aapko sawan. Bibi pani pee de, aapko sawan. The rule of the Ottomans. The last yani Sultanate or rulership of the Muslims. They ruled over the Muslim world for 600 years. And they came into power in the year 1299, 700 after Hijrah. And Jerusalem was a part of the territory that they had in their control up until 1922. Are you with me? So ye 600 saal ki tareekh, Jerusalem remained in the hands of the Muslims and under the hafazat and the protection of the Ottomans. But during this time you have the birth of Zionism. Ye aapki yani malumat was there historically. In the 1800s, whilst Jews had long dreamed of creating a Jewish state where Jews could be the majority, Zionism started taking root. Achha, if you want to understand what is Zionism, the equivalent of Zionism within the Muslims is Wahhabism. ज़्यादा परेशान चेहरे नजर आ रहे हैं, खैर हो रहा है. इन्हें हमेशा के खाली और खाना तो मैं भी चोचीता चला जा सकता. ये सुनने से तैयार ही नहीं. हाँ, तो वो समझो. If I was to go one step further, though we don't consider them in any shape, form or fashion to be Muslims, but उन्होंने समझो मुकाबल ये है that the muqabal of the Zionist movement would be the movement of the Qadianis. Because even Orthodox Jews do not accept Zionism today. Yes, those of you studied and read and watched your TikTok videos, and you're all experts on this Palestinian-Israeli conflict, you'll all be familiar with this. And then you'll find Zionists who are not just Jewish Zionists, Christian Zionists as well. The current president of America, Joe Biden, he says that I'm a Christian Zionist. वो पता नहीं कोई बगैरत है उस तरह TikTok पर वीडियो नजर आई है. He goes, I'm a Muslim Zionist. सिर्फ तू ही रहना चाहिए. सिर्फ तू ही रहना चाहिए. Muslim Zionist from Pakistan. I don't know if you saw it on TikTok. अजीब गल है. So this is their ideology, this is their movement, this is their thought process. So the Zionists made great efforts to get Christians and European countries on their side and to gain political influence in order to fulfill their aim. And who's the founder of Zionism? Theodor Herzl. He's the guy who founded Zionism. But you can't blame him solely. It's the influence that they placed on European countries and Christian countries which essentially is to blame. More on that shortly. Then you have the door of Sultan Abdul Hamid II. In 1897, Sultan Abdul Hamid II, the last Ottoman ruler, was offered millions of pounds. Somebody did some research recently and said in today's currency it was equivalent to 30 million pounds. He was offered of gold to allow the Jews to migrate to Palestine. Did he allow them? No. Jawab paro na, suno na. Because I cannot sell even an inch of this blessed land. Because these lands do not belong to me, but they belong to my nation. Nation ka murad hi ummat Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. My nation earned this empire by fighting and bleeding. These lands could not be taken from us. If you're going to take it from us, then it's only by blood. Ye asal hukmaran. The last of the great Muslim leaders. Acha, you're with me so far?
Yes.
Turkey tana gay. Just over 1,000 years we've covered in 45 minutes to an hour. And then in Akhri so sal, the last 100 years. Muslim disunity strikes again. Surprise, surprise. आजकल जो इत्तिहाद और यानी क्या है उसकी यूनिटी का नारा लाने ना जी हाँ दो कुछ ही है वो उन्हें पूछो ना ask them the question tell us when was there ever unity in the Muslim Ummah ये तो पहला सवाल पैदा हो गया was there unity when Imam Hussein went to Karbala and stood up against the oppression and tyranny of Yazid and his Lashkar and his followers? No. Was there unity when, as we just mentioned, the Fatimid dynasty were responsible for allowing Jerusalem to fall in the hands of the Christian Crusaders? No. And now here, just over 100 years ago, at the end of the Ottoman Empire, ye Kemal Atatürk, founder of modern Turkey, secular Turkey, these individuals, it was the end of the reign of Abdul Hamid II. There was a lot of political turmoil in the Muslim world. On one side, Kemal Atatürk wanted to secularize Turkey. On the other side, the Arab leaders revolted against the Ottomans, the Turks, in the name of Arab nationalism. Then you had the Balfour Declaration. Again, most of you would have heard of this recently. 1916, Great Britain pretended to support the Arab Revolution, but secretly they wanted to make plans to carve up the Middle East between themselves and France. And all of the provisions and the materials and the minerals that come from the lands that they wanted to occupy. So 2nd of November 1917, कितने साल पहले? 106 साल. Am I right? My maths is right? 106 years ago, the British Foreign Secretary, at that time, who was a Christian Zionist, surprise, surprise, declared that Palestine was going to be the homeland of the Jewish people. Did he have a right to do this? Oh, bolo na? No. But he did it nevertheless. And the British government supported him. And this became the beginning of the conflict that we find, which is still ongoing till today. And that Balfour Declaration is there. I'm picking up the speed because we're coming towards the end. Then you have the British mandate for Palestine. World War I has ended now. April 25th, 1920, the League of Nations gave Britain authority over Palestine. League of Nations is now today United Nations. It was known as League of Nations then. So आजकल बड़े यानी मुअज़्ज़ज़ बने ना. उन्होंने ऐसा ceasefire वास्ते यानी वोट रखने हैं कि we want a ceasefire, immediate ceasefire, permanent ceasefire. लेकिन ये नहीं पता they were the initial perpetrators of what's happening now in Palestine. So over the next 2 decades, from 1920 to 1940, and just before the start of World War II, 1938 World War II started, 100,000 Jews entered into Palestine. You would have seen the images. Palestinians welcoming them on boats, giving them any space to stay in their homes, giving them land, so on and so forth. They didn't consider them to be a danger at that time. फिर आया हिटलर, तो जो गुरुस किता फिर उसने सामने है जी, जिन्हें बचने और बचे उन्हें उस यानी हॉलोकॉस्ट तो, then they mass immigration to Jerusalem at the end of World War II. So after World War II in 1948, 15th of May, Britain pulls its troops out of Palestine, leaving the Jews and the Arabs to fight it out in the war that followed. So this is a newspaper clipping from that time. Headline newspaper clipping. Then 1948. Can anyone tell me what happened in 1948? Apart from maybe your grandfather being born. Ji? Nahi, ajay nahi. Oh yaar, you would have heard this. Starts with N. Nakba. Thank you, Bhaijan. Welcome to the show. 1948, the first catastrophe, Al-Nakba. Remember these things. Arab-Israeli War of 1948. Arab nations were disunited and proved to be no match for the well-funded, well-trained Israelis. At the end of 1940, World War II happened. Yes? Just to put this into perspective, when did the partition of India, Pakistan, Bangladesh happen? 47. Ik saal baad. 47 which partition hui thi? Hindustan became Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. The vision of Quaid-e-Azam and the efforts of Musawwir Pakistan, Darwish Sialkoti, Muhammad Iqbal, Allama, that became a reality in 1947. 1 year after that. 1 year after that. Nobody was here in 1947. Arisa? You came after? Arisa? Anybody around in 1947? Before our time? Ji? Acha? No. 1948, this is worth listening to, because this will put the current situation into perspective. 478 out of 585 Palestinian villages were destroyed. They committed, the Jews, Zionist Jews, committed 34 massacres of women and children, and they seized 78% of Palestinian territory. 750,000 Palestinians fled or were expelled from their homes. I said at the beginning, how many have been displaced over the last 2 months? 1.5 million in Gaza. Gaza is what? A strip on the west side of Palestine. 25 miles from north to south, 5 miles from east to west. That's the area of Gaza. Just over 2.2 million Muslims, a population of Gaza. 1.5 million people of Gaza have been displaced in the last 2 months. So history doesn't remember this favorably. Then how will history remember what's happening now? And how will our silence be perceived in 50 years' time, in 100 years' time? You can answer this yourself. Obviously pictures make it easy, right? You want to look at the screen now. You can tell I put some effort into this, huh? Don't worry, I'm not expecting any commission. 1917, pre-British mandate Palestine. All of that area is what color? Gumbad-e Khazra green. All of that area belong to Palestine. 106 saal pehle ki gal hai. None of you are definitely around, even if you don't want to say it. 106 years, nobody was there. So, 31st of October 1970, British forces conquered Palestine from the Ottoman Turks, ending 1400 years of Islamic rule over the region. Before the British mandate in Palestine, Jews made up around 6% of the total population. Is it a blue color nazar area? No? This was the areas where the Jews occupied. Keep this image in your mind. Ready for the next one? 1948. This Nungal area, Nakhbatubad, first catastrophe. Now you see that the green is what? Not even 22%, if my math serves me right. 78% of historic Palestine had been captured by the Zionist military forces. Remaining 22% was divided into the West Bank. Again, for those of you who haven't been will not know, West Bank here on the west and then Gaza on the east. This was then. Then the state of Israel in 1949 recognized by United Nations, supported by the United States and Great Britain. And before somebody has any issue or problem with this recording, नहीं पता live है? Oh, फिर तो बड़ा रोला. लेकिन ये सब हमारा freedom of speech है.
बिल्कुल.
Freedom of speech. Because that's the card they like to use, right? When it comes to Islamophobia and anti-Muslim rhetoric that they use, even in the House of Parliament. वो पुराना Prime Minister क्या नाम से उसना? Joris Bonson?
Bojo.
बोजो बड़े जल्दी बोल गया. Joris Bonson. मैं उसकी Joris Bonson ही कहना. वैसे Boris Johnson ही है ना? Joris Bonson. बोंगाई है ना? वो तो को baby tears now as he's doing his COVID thing, whatever it may be. चलो खैर all these things, they're explicit in this. They are complicit in this. There are those individuals who play their part in this. Their hands are stained with blood. And you might say, if you've got an issue and problem, then jao Pakistan uthe rahe ho Imam sahab. आजकल ये भी लोग आ रहे हैं ना, तो तुझे benefits भी लेने हो, though thankfully, alhamdulillah, we don't take any benefits from the government. I know, shocking, yes, Maulvi doesn't take benefits. Alhamdulillah. आज इन्होंने क्या खुली गया, वल्लाहु खैरु राज़िक़ीन. थोड़ा है लेकिन साफ सुथरा हुआ यार. ये नहीं हो जी मस्जिद वाले 100 दे रहे थे, उठू ऐसे 200 एक्स्ट्रा लेने हैं. लेकिन वो चलो इलादा मसला. Somebody might say, if you don't like what this government is and the British were guilty of them, why are you in this country? कोई गल करने नहीं यार. कोई मसला नहीं है, सब थे चले जा, सब वापस चले जा, सब मीर पर आजाद कश्मीर उठे ऐसे कोटियां हैं, कोई मसला नहीं. वाले साहब रोटी मेहनता, दादा साहब रोटी मेहनता, लेकिन ये कोई गल करने नहीं. They can talk about the history of Islam in a negative way, in a derogatory manner, but when we talk about their history and what they're guilty of, then they start putting across their own perspective. Last 3 slides. Then you have the Al-Aqsa, the setback in 1967. So between 1948 and 1967, various Arab groups attempted to put up a resistance, but they were not united or strong enough to succeed. In June 1967, everything came to a head, resulting in the 6-day war. Even though the Arabs were greater in number, you can see the numbers here. Arabs are 2,504 tanks, 547,000 troops, 950. आज भी बकायदा, ये तो चलो तारीख की बात होगी ना. Today as well, if the armies and the resources and the weaponry of Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Turkey, Pakistan, ये 5 mamalik, if they were to come together, the Israelis would be no match. Like Hazrat said at the beginning, gunge hoye na, statues, symbolic statements, that's all it is from them. And these individuals are spineless, Muslim leaders who have the ability, who have atomic weaponry, लेकिन कोई इस्तेमाल करने वास्ते तैयार ही नहीं. And then in this particular setback, 13,300 Arabs were killed, 779 Israelis were killed. Then you have the aftermath of the 6-day war. I'm going to give my voice a break and drink some water. You can read this slide yourself. So in 1948, 750,000 Palestinians were displaced from their homes. 21 years later now, 350,000 further Palestinians displaced from their homes. If somebody came to your house, all of you live in Stockport here, some of you in Manchester, mashallah, my beloved Sajid Bhai come from Blackburn, Bradford, somebody comes, knocks on your door at midnight and says, doesn't even give you a chance to pick up your belongings, what's precious to you, and says, that's it, and you move from, I don't know, from Bradford, I don't think that's a bad thing, to move from Bradford, Rajasthan, move from Bradford, you go to, I don't know, where would you go, नहीं Stockport anyway. आज तो बात इतने भी सारे डोरा लग गया उसे. चलो let's say you travel 100 miles down south towards Leicester. ना कोई पहचान, ना कोई इस तरीके की वाकफियत, ना कोई family, ना कोई friends. Would that be fair? बोलो ना. You constitute that as your rights being fulfilled, basic human rights? No. This is happening. Not now. This has been happening for decades to our Palestinian brothers and sisters. Another map. 1967 now. This is the third map we're showing you. Last minute or two. Israel occupies Gaza and the West Bank. Palestinian under Israeli occupation. Again, Khalid Saab will tell you, Ajit Saab will tell you, when you go to Masjid Al-Aqsa, 2, 3, 4, 5 soldiers, all suited and booted, guns in their hands, This is outside Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. Then every Ramadan what they do, just to invoke a reaction from the Muslim Ummah, to see whether the Ummah is still awake, whether they still have Ghairat Iman. Har Ramazan Sharif which, Allahu Akbar. Asa Masjid Waqtan, apna awaz uthane the free Palestine in Nare lane from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be Oh bolo na, Palestine shall be inshallah. Lekin sirf naare hi na. As Hazrat was saying earlier on, koi apne man mein डूबो, तेरे दिल तो है सनम आशिना, तुझे क्या मिलेगा नमाज में? You have these illnesses and diseases in your heart, you can't stand the next month successful, तुझे क्या मिलेगा नमाज में? Allah Akbar. So what can we do to conclude? Of course, dua is the weapon of the believer. Do not stop making dua. Un dua mein muki gaya na. Exactly 2 months and 3 days since the recent atrocities happened. 7th of October was it? Today is the 10th of December if I'm not mistaken. 2 months and 3 days. Un dua mein muki gaya na. You thaki gaya na. Human nature. Insan comes from one of the root words in nasiya, to forget. Like if inna dhikra tanfa'ul mu'mineen. Quran says what? Reminders are beneficial for the believers. And I applaud Maulana Sahib, Haji Ghulam Rasool Sahib, Intizami of this masjid, for utilizing this monthly Yadi Sharif, for having this discussion. The Cholo ji Imam Sahib aur koi hove, jera koi Sunni alim din hove, who came and has educated the public here in relation to the history of Palestine. I salute the Imam Sahib, I salute the committee. Some of us are tired of seeing these images now. Fatigued, right? The posts on social media, on Instagram and Snapchat and on Facebook, is it? Thaki gaya na. Akela muksi ji, akela jaan chutsi ji, is tariqe naal alfaz asa istemal karne ya. Asata sirf gallan hi karne ya na. But those who are actually going through this every day, every night, as soon as this temporary ceasefire stopped, the very next day they started bombing again. 700 Palestinians were killed in one day. This temporary ceasefire that stopped last week, I think it was, 700 Palestinians were killed in one. More Palestinians were killed in one day than in any other time period over the last 2 months and 3 days. But now we see that the protests and the boycotts as well. Mehraan ho jana yaar, log aane ji McDonald's boycott karo. Shabash, what were you doing in McDonald's in the first place? Oh, McDonald's वैसे ही हराम है यार. आने नहीं इमाम साहब सब मकफूरी वस्ते जा रहे हैं. शाबाश. McDonald's boycott karo ji. Now what are you doing in McDonald's anyway? Only fish fillet burger. Oh yeah, don't you know that the oil they use for the fish fillet is the same oil they use for their beef burgers? होश ही को नहीं. आजकल जैसा नांडोज भी हलाल समझ रहे जी, जितना बात जी हलाल है जी, कुल्लू हलाल बिस्मिल्लाह वाला बरकतिल्लाह. ना कोई तहकीक, ना कोई पूछने, ना कोई पालने. यानी जो हराम कह नहीं समझने कि ना छोड़ रहे हैं, गाल ना छेड़ने. यानी सलफिया वहाबिया वाले जी लंगर शरीफ महाद अल्लाह ये अच्छा नहीं, लेकिन वो कह रहे नहीं मैकडॉनल्ड्स ठीक है जी, क्योंकि उन्होंने नजदीक बॉयकॉट करना. ये आजकल है ना टिकटॉक पर, दिस दावा मैन एंड निके जे चेले जे उन्होंने सारे लगे हुए हैं. नहीं नो बॉयकॉट नो, बिकॉज़ दे आर हैप्पी ईटिंग मैकडॉनल्ड्स एंड स्टारबक्स. अजीब बात है. The boycotts are working. They're having an effect, right? The share value and the share prices of these multi-billion dollar companies, the prices are dropping now. So don't stop. Don't stop. Protests, well, I don't think there's many protests happening. If there are, you should make your effort to attend. Like above all, it's number 2 here, right? Number 2 is what? Because number 4 we've done today, alhamdulillah. Read up and educate yourself on the history of Palestine. Everyone's confident now on the history of Palestine? And just by show of hands, how many of you now are more confident than when we started an hour ago? Right up in the air, chanda tana mangra. चंदा तो माशाल्लाह पूरा हो ही गया, तब तो मस्जिद इतनी खूबसूरत है. Lekin it's number 2, which we mentioned twice already. Third time is hat trick now. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيْرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيْرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Surah Al-Ra'd ki ayat hai na? Allah Almighty says what? That He will not change the state of the people until them people change themselves. Bas. Huh? We're busy attending protest. Chalo theek hai, I'm not going to contradict myself. Attend protest. Like if you're attending protest but you don't attend the masjid for Salatul Fajr in the morning, तो क्या फायदा? इस गाल पर गाल से वो बिजार साहब वाली गाल 15 साल पहले they said that leading Jewish rabbi of Europe, he made an observation. He said we don't fear the Muslims. Yeah, on the record gaal 15 years ago. He said we don't fear the Muslims. We'll only fear the Muslims when their Salatul Fajr is as busy as their Salatul Jummah. जुमे वास्ते दो जमातें हो रही हैं जी. फिकी मसला है. I'm not going to go into all of that. ठीक है जी, 2 जमातें हो, 3 हो जी, 4 हो जी. In one masjid in Bradford 4 जमातें हो रही हैं जी. क्यों ना चंदा लो है ना. कोई वजूहात है ना. सही जगह निकालनी है, मरकजी मस्जिद है. मैं नाम ना लेना चाहिए और कोई खट्टा खुली जा. इशारतन गाल काफी है. लेकिन चलो जी 4 जमातें ही पवे हो. लेकिन फजर वास्ते कितने बंदे होने मौलाना? बोली पे होना. That's it. So this is where we need to start first and foremost. The first battle of the day against the shaitan is Salatul Fajr. And the one who reads Salatul Fajr by Jamaat in the masjid, that person remains in the protection of Allah Almighty. Let's start with Fajr. Say inshallah. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا
MashaAllah, that was a very detailed speech on Palestine. Just to end off, like I mentioned, that we are going to do a fundraiser for Palestine. So now hands, okay? I'll start with myself first. Mari Walda ne aj subah, she gave me her card. Okay, my mom does not earn, and she's not working.
Allah.
Okay, she gets slight pension and stuff. But she said, for my account, I am going to give £200.
Subhanallah.
My sister phoned from Pakistan. She said, I am going to give £1,000 for Palestine.
Allah.
Okay. So let's have a hands, and inshallah, the money that we get, inshallah, we are going to give to FGRF, Dawat Islam, inshallah. They are on the ground on Palestine, in Gaza, working. So all of the money that we collect today will go through FGRF, Dawat Islami. So, can I have a hands of £200? Yes? Okay. Shah Sahab, mashallah, subhanallah. Okay, anybody else? Those who born. For our Muslims, subhanallah, Allah Abdul Farman. And we are those who are born, subhanallah. Chalo, take inshallah. But remember, all of this program today, the cost of this program, beyond that, whatever money we make, it will all go to Palestine. The Masjid is not going to keep a single penny. We've agreed with that. Okay, the cost of the program, that will be fulfilled. But beyond that, every single penny will go to Palestine. Inshallah, Allah Ta'ala Qabul Manzoor Farmai. So our Dr. Sahab will come round. Please put in whatever you can for our Palestinians.
मेरी भी कोई खिदमत हो सी है लफाफा लपसी मेरा लफाफा भी जो डोनेशन विच पाई हो नहीं क्या है मैं अपनी तरफ ऐलान करना यार मेरे वास्ते दुआ करो नारे तकबीर अल्लाह नारे रिसालत नारे हैदरी नारे तहकीक ये ना समझो मौलवी से मंगे उससे बैठे करते हैं so we could देने भी हैं alhamdulillah.
So this is the love for Palestine. Allah Ta'ala हमें कामयाबी अता फरमाए. Remember, if someone wants to give zakat to the Gaza Muslims, you can't do it because they are extremely poor, they are in need. So you can't give zakat. I've just been given £100 zakat. put this separate slightly, ठीक है, इसको हम उसके हिस्से में नहीं डालेंगे, ये separately will tell the people that this is zakat money, this is only can go to the gharib Musliman, inshallah. ठीक है, so inshallah we bang on time. I aim to finish at 6:15. Alhamdulillah we have finished. Bang on 6:15. लंगर तैयार है? जी तैयार है? Subhanallah. खड़े जी सलात सलाम, and then inshallah we make dua and then langar for everyone, inshallah. Ya Nabi salam alayka, Ya Rasul salam alayka, Ya Habib salam alayka, salawatullah alayka, طلع البدر علينا من ثنية الوداع وجب الشكر علينا ما دعا لله داعي يا نبي سلام عليك يا رسول سلام عليك يا حبيب سلام عليك صلوات الله عليك मेरे आका जब मरे गम कलमा आपका पड़े गम बाद उसके ये कहे गम सलावतुल्लाह अलैका या हबीब सलाम अलैका या रसूल सलाम अलैका या हबीब सलाम अलैका सलावतुल्लाह अलैका. Just one announcement, and inshallah on the 25, 26, 27 December, we're holding a winter Islamic course for the children 11 plus, 11 years beyond. So that course will be in the Masjid of Masjid, open to both male and female from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. The course is £20, but inshallah that will give food as well after Maghrib Salah. So these 3 days, you send your children for that. Inshallah we'll teach Aqidah al-Sunnah, fiqh and the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So these 3 we are going to do. Remember the dates 25, 26, 27 December. So I want to ask the Imam Sahib to make dua and then the program will be concluded today. हमारे एक साथी ने 500 पाउंड दिया इसको.
एक बारी सूरतुल फातिहा शरीफ, 3 बारी सूरतुल इखलास शरीफ और आखिर दुरूद शरीफ. Last for the Palestinian brothers and sisters who have been made shaheed over the last several months. Allah Almighty raise all of their darajat in the akhirah. And again, the atrocities didn't just take place and start on the 7th of October. The atrocities, as we've been discussing, have been happening for the last several decades. Those who have put up the resilience and the fight against the Zionist government of Israel and have lost their lives over the last several decades, Allah Almighty raise all of their darajat in the akhirah. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله. آمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا ونبينا وشفينا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. ربنا أتمم لنا نورنا واغفر لنا إنك على كل شيء قدير. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وقنا عذاب القبر وقنا عذاب الحشر وقنا عذاب الميزان وأدخلنا الجنة مع الأبرار يا عزيز يا غفار يا رب العالمين. ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار يا عزيز يا غفار يا رب العالمين. اللهم إنا نسألك العفو والعافية في الدين والدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إنا نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى اللهم إنا نسألك إيمانا كاملا ورزقا طيبا وعلما نافعا وعملا متقبلا وشفاء من كل داء بوسيلة سيد الأبرار اللهم إنا نسألك الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار اللهم أجرنا من النار يا مجير يا مجير يا مجير يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك يا مصرف القلوب صرف قلوبنا على طاعتك يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم يا Hannan ya Mannan ya Dhal Jalali wal Ikram. We make sincere dua that you accept our mahfil or majlis in your barakah. Mahana Yarvi Sharif gathering or Bil Khusus this month's gathering which has been dedicated to show our unity for the Palestinian brothers and sisters. Ya Allah, we ask of you, accept our efforts in your barakah. From ibtida to intiha, Salatul Maghrib by Jama'at up until this point, Al-Baqarah up until Salatul Isha that we'll offer together by Jama'at. Accept all of our efforts in your barakah. Ya Allah, Tilawat-e-Quran, Dhikr Adhkar, Kalimat-e-Tayyibat, Bayan-e-Light of Quran and Sunnah, Aqaid, Nuqat which have been mentioned or points in relation to Aqidah, Surah Al-Fatiha Sharif, Surah Al-Ikhlas Sharif that has been recited, Langar Sharif that has been prepared, Atiyat and collection that has been done for those who are suffering in Palestine. Ya Allah, accept all of these efforts in your barakah. That the reward of this mahfil majlis and everything that we mentioned and no doubt what is in your knowledge, first and foremost, hadiyatan, tawfatan, aqidatan, mahabbatan, adaban, be conveyed to the barakah of Huzu Jana Jana, Tajdar Medina, Noor Sina Lajpa Nabi Kareem Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ya Allah, then through the wasila and wasta of Nabi Sallallahu Wasallam, tawassul tufail of Lajpa Nabi Kareem Rasul Khatamun Nabiyyin, rahmatan lil alameen, let the reward be conveyed by way of Isa al-Thawab to all of the Anbiya wal Mursaleen, Kul Sahaba Ikram, Ahlul Bayt, Adhar Azwaj Mutahharat, Walidain Kariman, Ulad Pak of Rasul Akram sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Shuhadai Badr, Shuhadai Uhud, Shuhadai Yamama, Shuhadai Karbala, Bil Khusus all of the awliya, Sufiya, Ulama, Mujtahideen, Mufassirin, Muhaddithin, A'immai Tariqat, A'immai Shariat, Shuhadai Ummat Surahai Mut of the Ahli Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Khususan bil Khusus, that the reward of this mahfil or majlis be conveyed to Sultan Nuruddin Zangi rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi, Sultan Salahuddin al-Ayyubi rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi, Sultan Abdul Hamid II rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi, and all of our righteous Hukmaran who exerted their efforts in liberating Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, in defending Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, in conquering Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. Ya Allah, we ask of you, allow our Hukmaran to have the same level of ghairat and iman as the Hukmaran of that time and era. Ya Allah, we ask of you that through their wasila and wasta, let the reward of this mahfil or majlis be conveyed to all of our marhumeen, marhumat who have left this dunya from our families. Those who are shamil in this dua, at this moment in time who have their hands raised in your barakah, who have lost their parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, aunties and uncle, young and old, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters. Ya Allah, we ask you, we raise all of their darajat in the akhirah. Grant them all the highest maqam in Jannatul Firdaus. Ya Allah, then through the wasila and wasta of Pire Pira, Amir Mira, Mahbub Subhani, Qutb Rabbani, Shahbaz ila Makani Al-Ghawth Al-Azam, Kindile Nurani, Rabbi Allah Ta'ala anhu, let the reward of this mahfil or majlis in particular be conveyed to those who have lost their life as part of the innocent civilians of Gaza and Palestine and those in the West Bank. Ya Allah, over the last several weeks, months and decades, Ya Allah, raise all of their darajat in the akhirah. Grant them all the highest maqam in Jannatul Firdaus. Ya Allah, we make dua for our Palestinian brothers and sisters. Remove their suffering for them. Alleviate their difficulties and hardships for them. Ya Allah, we ask of you that allow them to continue with steadfastness, to be resilient in their stance against the Zionist government of Israel. Ya Allah, help them through your ghaibana madad, through your unseen help, just as you assisted the Sahaba on the day of the Battle of Badr. وَلَقَدْ نَصَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ بِبَدْرٍ وَأَنْتُمْ أَذِلَّةٌ, when 5,000 angels, including Jibreel alayhi salam and Mikail alayhi salam, came down from the heavens on that day to assist the Sahaba, and they helped the Sahaba to victory. Ya Allah, we ask of you the same way, help our Palestinians to victory against the Zionist government of Israel. Ya Allah, help them through your ghaibana madad. Wherever the Muslims are suffering, Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps in China, Rohingya Muslims on the borders of Burma and Bangladesh, Indian occupied Kashmiris who have been in lockdown for several decades. Ya Allah, we ask you, wherever the ummatis are suffering, remove their suffering for them. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said this ummah is jasad-e-wahid. Whenever any part of the ummah is in pain, the whole ummah is inflicted with this pain. Ya Allah, we have this pain today. That we ask of you that unite this ummah so that we can stand up against the oppression that's happening against the ummatis around the world. Ya Allah, we ask of you, those who have facilitated this gathering, those who have supported this gathering, Malit or those who have done khidmat by preparing the food as well. Ya Allah, we ask of you accept all of the efforts in your barakah. Intizamiya Afrad, Haji Ghulam Rasul Sahib, Ya Allah, and all of the team here who have established this Shandar Masjid in the heart of Stockport. Ya Allah, accept their efforts in your barakah. Those who have supported the Mali Tor, Amri Tor, Ya Allah, accept their efforts in your barakah. Lekin I feel the main credit goes to the leader of this organization, the Imam al-Khatib, and the visionary of this organization, and that is Hazrat Alama Umar Tayyib Sahib. Ya Allah, we ask of you that you accept their khidmat for Deen Madeen in your barakah. Ya Allah, give them a long and healthy life. Ya Allah, keep their sayah qaim and daim upon the Ahli Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Ya Allah, with sincerity they are serving their community here in Stockport. Give them mazid istiqamat upon this path. Ya Allah, allow the people of this community to do ta'awan of Hazrat Sahib and support them in their good work and their khairat. Ya Allah, give their noble father, Mufassir Quran, a long and healthy life. Keep their sayah qaim and daim upon our heads. Allow us to benefit from their views of barakah. All ulama haqqa, ulama ahli sunnati wal jama'ah, those who have ghairat in their hearts, who are speaking up against the atrocities that are happening against the Palestinians, and who speak up against Aqidah Ahli Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Give all of them ulama, Ya Allah, a long and healthy life. Or akhri dua, Ya Allah, we ask of you, jo ahbab bamaran, unna ki shifai kamila ajla nafiya ta farma. Jo be-auladan, neko salih aulad ata farma. Jo sahibul auladan, Ya Allah, make their children farmadar. Make our children into the leaders of the Muslim Ummah for the next generation. Samihna wa ata'na ghufra. Or jo parshan halat vichan. Many come to these gatherings with their worries and their stresses and anxieties. Ya Allah, we make dua. जो इस वक्त परेशान हालत में चल उन्हें परेशानियां दूर करो, मुश्किलात दूर करो. लेकिन in reality, in comparison, our anxieties and difficulties are nothing compared to what the Palestinians are going through. Ya Allah, we ask of you that you remove their suffering and their difficulties for them, and remove our suffering and difficulties for us as well. Sallallahu ta'ala ala habibihi Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Irhamna ya Mawlana bi rahmatika.
And everyone can go toward the community side, inshallah. We are going to do probably longer before Salatul